Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric and Tour de Fleece 2023. I should have worn this shirt yesterday to celebrate the victory of Tour de France and the beginning of the Tour de France Femmes. I know a number of the participants in this Tour de Fleece event have wound down their spinning and wrapped it up with the end of the Tour de France. But I know there's just as many others that are moving forward to also spin along with the Tour de France Femmes. It seemed like a really good month-long event to have this, where it started on the 1st of July and the Tour de France Femmes ends on the 30th of July. It seemed like a good month-long spinning event rather than curtailing it. But I do know for many, they have spun through their fiber, they have worn themselves out, and they're ready to switch gears. And if you are doing that, congratulations on making it to the end of the tour, the end of the first, the first stage, I guess you could say, the men's race. Congratulations on meeting your goals, on attempting your goals, spinning as much as you were able to. It is a wonderful accomplishment whether you spun a little or you spun a lot. And I do want to make sure to take the time to congratulate you, as well as congratulate the winners of the Tour de France. It has been a joy to watch some of the footage this year. I've watched more than I have in the years past, and it has been a joy. I think it's going to become something I do more each year. So, I have to say too that the final stage, yes, I have. It's terrible when you have two favorites that you're rooting for, but I guess in the end, they're both winners, and so, alas, I do have topics to go through this upcoming week. I do have fiber to go through this upcoming week. The fiber that I'm currently going to be spinning on is my rainbow braid that I did. I also have some of my blue, which is my Saturday spin when I go to the knitting coop to spin. I do plan on doing that again this week unless something comes up. That is my goal. I also have quite a bit of my sweater spin left to spin. And I have two little bats of brown that I had as backup just in case. It might be enough to get me through this week, but I have a feeling it's not. Well, I think the big sweater spin will be enough to push me through this week. Whether or not it's something I want to spin every day on camera, well, that's another story. Oh, but I do have topics to go through the week. And speaking of which, let's go ahead and pull out today's topic. And today's topic is S and Z twist, the Z versus the S twist in our fiber. And I'm going to go ahead and let me just go. It says, why does it matter? Does it matter which direction we spin our yarn? Well, that is a both yes and a no answer to that question. The most important thing, if we're looking for a balanced yarn, I should mention, I am trying to spin this braid thin. I had thought about doing a lace weight 2-ply, but I love the colors and the way the colors are coming out. So I've decided instead I will do a 3-ply, and it's probably going to be light fingering when it's done. So I'm doing, to control the color, I'm doing what I call my inchworm forward draft. Very small drafting, very controlled, trying to control the color as it comes off the braid. I initially split my braid in half, simply to make it a little easier to control. And I also thought maybe I was going to do a 2-ply. I probably should have split it in half and then half again, and then mixed up the halves, split it half lengthwise and half vertical, Yeah, lengthwise and down the middle type thing. But I forgot. I got into spinning. But I think it'll be fun. When I dyed this braid, I actually dyed the braid where the fiber was folded over itself in half. So it is a pretty good mirror of each, each end is a mirror. So it should make a nice self-striping yarn. Okay, sidetrack there. I thought I'd at least tell you what I'm spinning and why I'm spinning it, or how I'm spinning it. So Z versus S twist. When I first started spinning, for some reason my brain really gravitated to spinning counterclockwise and then plying clockwise. And it wasn't a problem. It wasn't an issue. Then I did hear more about why people spun the other direction. I was told it was better for knitting yarn, and we use our yarn for knitting more than crochet. I started adjusting my spinning techniques because my daughter, she did not want, she got tired of spinning a worsted yarn when it was supposed to be fluffy is what she wanted. So I started doing a little more research and changing things up and experimenting, and eventually did really settle on spinning clockwise and plying counterclockwise. All right, I will just put this out there to begin with. Even when I look it up every single time, I can't, for some reason, the information does not stay in my brain as to whether I'm spinning S or Z. I just know I spin counterclockwise and clockwise. Now, I am sure that if you are a spinner, you have figured out what I'm talking about, at least by this point of the month. But if you are not a spinner or you're just starting, you may not understand what I'm talking about Z and S. Now, I have it on my card here, and I'm going to show this to the camera. But I will also put a picture here or down here showing you the Z and the S. I also have a card, and so I actually have this book both on an electronic version of it, and I have it in the physical form. And I'm really glad I went with the physical form, because in the back of it, it has a bunch of cards that show the different spinning techniques that it is showing you through the book. And one of the best cards it has is this one. And in that, you can really see the difference between the S and the Z in this case, they've made it dark with the black. So I'm going to just read right what it says here from her book. S twist yarn. You produce an S twist when you turn your spinning wheel to the left counterclockwise. The twist angle in this yarn leans to the left just as the center of the letter S does. Coincidentally, as you begin to print the letter S, your pen travels left. Okay? Z twist, you produce a Z twist when you turn your wheel to the right, clockwise. The twist angle of this yarn leans to the right as the letter Z. And when you print the letter Z, your pen travels to the right. Say to yourself, Z right. Z right way to spin is Z right. I hadn't read all the way to the end of that until just now. Okay, so okay. Sorry, I find that really funny. Okay, but while the instruction as to the S versus Z is excellent, there isn't a right or wrong way to spin, because we spin different yarns. If we are spinning a knitting yarn, then spinning the Z and plying S is probably going to be a yarn you prefer if you're knitting, because of the way when you knit, you can put or remove twist into the yarn as you're knitting. Now, with that being said, there are so many different things that can change the way the twist in the yarn is handled when you are using the yarn as opposed to making the yarn. And the big one is the difference between crochet versus knit, but also there can be differences depending on if you're right-handed and left-handed. It can depend on so right-handed and left-handed, whether it's crochet or whether it's knit. Of course, if you're trying to make cabled yarn or yarn that is plying multiple plies back on themselves after having plied them to other plies, in essence, there are other yarns that might have you spinning an S single and then plying with a Z. So while it is catchy to think Z right is the right way, jeez. I apologize to anyone out there that might not find the humor in that. Okay. All right, so the moral of this story, I have lost the plot. The moral of the story is sometimes if the yarn isn't behaving the way you want it to behave, consider maybe your specific needs require you to spin the opposite direction. Whether it be crochet, whether it's your technique of knitting, whether you're right-handed or left-handed, there's a lot of variation. We like to think everyone knits the same way. We like to think everyone crochets the same way, but it's not the case. And there are a lot of individual variations that may cause somebody to prefer to spin a different way. And maybe, maybe if you spin a really tight yarn, maybe you like having it so that it untwists a little bit as you work with it. And maybe if you spin a really loose yarn, maybe you like having extra twist being put in it as you work with it. So if you are finding some frustration crafting with your yarn, if it's not doing what you want it to do, consider doing an experiment and changing the twist direction. It may be that just changing the twist direction actually helps you with your specific yarn. That's the wonderful thing about hand spinning. It's individual. We can make the adjustments. We can do it for ourselves. I have seen some beautiful yarns through this month of Tour de Fleece. I have seen some chunky, lightly spun yarns. I have seen some tight, smooth worsteds. I have seen very fine lace and very fluffy thick and thins. All of them. Oh, and I've seen some gorgeous beehives. Oh my goodness. There is some gorgeous yarn being made, and it's being made by individuals for their individual needs. And whether that individual need is to sell, or the individual need is to give away, or the individual need is to knit up a sweater, or to crochet a shawl, or to make an amigurumi, a little stuffed animal, to make a granny square poncho, whatever the end result with your yarn, it's individual. And that's why we hand spin. Well, we also hand spin just because we enjoy spinning it. And I know there are a number of hand spinners out there that they don't create with their yarn. Maybe they sell their yarn, maybe they give their yarn away, maybe they just keep it in a stash of beautiful art fluffiness that makes them happy. But we spin for personal reasons. We spin for our individual needs and satisfaction. And that is what makes our spinning right or wrong. Not whether or not it is a Z versus an S twist. But you have to love, finding an easy way to remember. And yes, for the most part, we see spinners spinning a Z twist and plying S. That has a tendency to be what we see most people doing. But just simply because most people are doing it doesn't mean it is a right or wrong way, because we do things a certain way because that's how we're taught. Oftentimes, we get, I think back to the quote from earlier in the vlogs of, okay, I'm pulling it out because I think it's again appropriate. Oh, that one right here. Okay, yes, the great quote. So I will read it again. This is by Judith MacKenzie, and it's in her book, The Intentional Spinner, a holistic approach to making yarn. All right. When I learned to spin, my teacher spun beautifully and had strong opinions about spinning that had served her well. She had earned the right to those opinions. For her, there were two types of spinning, worsted and wrong. Imagine my surprise when, years later and far from our village, I tried to spin cotton and found that nothing in my spinning experience helped. Cashmere wasn't easy either, and my spun Angora was like wire. I experimented and struggled for several months until I found a method that worked and made spinning those short, crimpy fibers a joy and a pleasure. When I finally met other spinners, I discovered that the technique I had reinvented was woolen spinning. So, she goes on to say, there is no right or wrong way to spin, but like everything else, spinning is governed by cause and effect. If you do this, that will happen. When you understand the forces that work in your yarn, you can choose and even modify any of the basic spinning methods to get exactly the yarn you want from the fiber you choose. I really do love that quote. That is why I'm reading it a second time during this spinning. Oh, I do love that quote, because what a better way to sum up hand spinning. We're doing it for us. And so playing around with it, experimenting, finding the thing that works for us, the thing that brings us joy. And if we are crafting with our own yarn, figuring out the method that creates the yarn we want to work with. And that's what's key. So I will tell you, I don't spend a lot of time doing this, color handling very fine when I'm spinning to try to get a thin. And again, I remember somebody saying, when you want to go thin, when you want to get lace weight, you actually sit here and you count the individual fibers going into the yarn in order to keep it consistent and keep it thin. I am not at a stage of counting it. I am definitely thicker than counting each of those, but I am watching and getting a proportional amount, keeping it in that same ratio of how many fibers are going through my hands. It's a visual that I'm seeing to judge. And it is what, as I said, inchworm. Can I do this a long draw? Yes, but I'll lose some of the color definition because of the way it's dyed, the way I dyed it. I was experimenting a little bit when I first started, if I could do a longer draw with it, and I started losing the bands of color, and that's what I want to keep this time. So I have to tell you, doing this type of spinning, it does take a greater toll on my hands. I feel more strain when I'm spinning like this than when I'm spinning in my normal style. And I know that my normal style of a long draw is a little different than other people's, but it works for me and it doesn't cause me pain. And that's what's important. So doing this, while it is giving me a fabulous spin, it would wear me out. It would wear me out a lot faster. It would make my hands hurt more. And so it's not going to be something I do very often. I will do it because I have a specific need, but this is not my go-to method of spinning. And it's not simply because I want to spin fast. It is because I am trying to spin in such a way that I conserve my ability to spin. Because when I put extra strain on any part of my body for any extended period of time, not only will I suffer, immediate side effects of achy, joints, but I can actually induce very, very quickly repetition-based injury that can take weeks for me to recover from. It's something that even in my youth was a problem for me. I ended up with a lot of repetition-based inflammations. Fortunately, I now know why, and it doesn't frustrate me as much. I work around it. I work with it. My body may fight me, but I'm trying to not fight my body. So I am really enjoying the colors that I'm getting. I'm going to tilt let's see if I can tilt my bobbin just a little bit. I'm really enjoying there. You're kind of seeing it. I'll have pictures definitely as I go. But I'm enjoying the spin. I'm enjoying the colors, but I do know that if I did this for, 23 days of spinning, for 30 days of spinning, if I had sat down in the beginning of July and this was the way I was planning to spin the whole time, I wouldn't be able to do it. This is not something I can sustain. I know others who this little inchworm spinning is exactly what their comfort zone is. And if that is, then do what works for you. But for me, I have to find something else. And that's why, again, hand spinning is individual. It is to fit our needs and our abilities. And not just our abilities because maybe we're brand new and we haven't practiced much. No, our abilities because each of us has our own type of system, our body. We're unique. And it means that we can make unique yarn. Even if it looks a lot like someone else's, it's unique because of how we made it and the fact that we made it. So, I'm not sure how Z versus S ended up being in another discussion of the uniqueness of our hand spun, but there we have it. So, the topic is covered. I am sitting here inchworm spinning my way with a color that is not going to show up against my shirt at the moment. So with that, I think I'm going to wrap this video up a little early. I may do that if possible. It's going to be topic dependent, but I'm going to try to get a video out again every day during this final week. And I hope that you will join me for more unwinding with fiber and fabric, and that you will find joy whether you're unwinding, winding down, cooling down, working on turning all your yarn into something else. Whatever you're doing, I hope that you will join me and take some time to unwind with fiber and fabric. But until tomorrow, or until I see you again, happy spinning, happy crafting, and just have a happy day.